Now, the Occupy Wall Street movement has hit New Zealand. Thousands of people have marched in Auckland and now there are sitting demonstrations which are taking place around the country. Protesters are calling the movement Occupying Aotearoa. But although the name is country-specific, it seems this protest is not. Joining me now is protester John Minto. Good morning, Mr Minto. Thank you for coming in. What's the core issue with the protest? What's the beef here?
Well, the beef is that we've got the 99%, which is the slogan of the movement. We are the 99% of people having to carry the 1%, and the 1% are those who've become obscenely wealthy particularly over the last generation, at the expense of the majority. So we have, for example, in New Zealand, the 150 wealthiest New Zealanders last year had an increase in wealth of $7 billion, while we've got hundreds of thousands of children living in poverty. So it's really about inequality and the fact that the 99% are having to carry this 1%.
Is it New Zealand specific?
Well, New Zealand, interestingly enough, since from 1984 to 2004, New Zealand had the biggest increase in inequality of any country in the world, and that was after the Labour government introduced Rogernomics. So for New Zealand, it is particularly pertinent. Okay,
in America, some demonstrators believe that the protest Occupy Wall Street needs a common goal. Others say it doesn't at all. It's just about corporate greed. Doesn't it need a common goal?
Well, I think that's inevitably going to develop over time, but people have been very careful not to push that. I mean, when the Auckland group met, when we met for the first time a couple of weeks ago, there was a deliberate decision. We don't have a particular goal, particular aim. We're there to really say to people that the economic structures need a revolutionary change because they are not working for people. But in terms of specific objectives, that'll come later from the movement.
But you need to know what you're protesting about in order to know. When you had
what they're protesting.
When you had Holton Richest tours,
sure.
That was a goal. You got there and you did that. And now we've got this. Well, it's a bit generic. It's corporate greed. So, in order to protest, you clearly must be wanting to achieve something at the end of that. So
absolutely.
Don't you need a firm line as to what you're trying to achieve here?
Well, I think everybody knows what they're against, but we don't have a blueprint for the way forward. There's a very diverse range of people there, and over time I think those things will become clearer. But at the moment it's a movement which is embracing this very diverse range of people, and that is a very powerful thing. It's not just one organisation leading things. It's actually, there are no leaders in a sense. It's all of these groups together saying we're going to work together and push forward for a solution. Now, some of us, all of the different groups have got their own ideas on what that might look like, but through a process of discussion, consultation and what have you, and involvement in action and involving other organisations, those things will become clearer.
We know how the States found itself in the situation it's found itself in, and Europe. We know that there's corporate greed. We know that there's corrupt politics. Do you think those two principles apply in New Zealand, though, as well?
They apply just as much as anywhere else.
Really? Corrupt politics, you think?
Well, I think, I think we have legalised theft, is how I would describe it in New Zealand, where you have, where a tiny proportion of the population get not just an enormous share of the income each year, but in fact get an even bigger share of the wealth of the country. And that's just unsustainable when we have, we live in a land of plenty, and we have this, we have the same thing we have around the rest of the world, just a tiny number of people being carried by the majority. It's
not a new issue, though, is it? As long as we've had corporate greed.
That's true, but it's certainly got dramatically worse over the past generation, certainly within New Zealand. But I think all bets are off in a sense. I think a lot of people are looking for the kind of change that will mean we put the people at the centre of the economy rather than have people working for an economy.
And who can make that change? Is it John Key? Because he's a Prime Minister who's pretty
eventually
popular.
It will come.
He's not sympathetic to protesters. He's not sympathetic to sit-ins.
No, he's not. And we wouldn't expect. I mean, John Key is one of the 150 wealthiest New Zealanders. Now, he had a massive increase in wealth last year, and some people would say he earned it. He never earned it. He never earned it. It was simply there, and money which was gained through the increase in the value of the assets that he owns and those other 150 people I mentioned own. They don't pay tax on that. I mean, you and I, every dollar we earn, we pay tax on it. John Key, most of his income, he doesn't pay any tax at all.
All right, John Minto, we do have to leave it there, but thank you for your time this morning.